Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Board on a Thursday. I'm your host, Chris Bird, and I'm here with JJ. JJ, what's up?
What's up, guys?
Hey, man, we're going to talk about our favorite and worst superhero movies. So this kind of goes into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We both saw it over the weekend, so we'll kind of give our thoughts on that, and then we're going to hit on our best and our worst and some other little awards for some superhero movies. So JJ, what did you think overall about Guardians Volume 2?
Well, first of all, I didn't see it over the weekend because I had special Monday night premiere passes.
Oh, wow.
I
There it
didn't
goes.
have to watch it, with the public, if you would say that. That's
With the minions and the underlings.
There were no children in the theater, which is the best win of the whole thing. No, so went in, get to see it. I thought it was a really good movie. I mean, it hit all expectations of what I wanted. I mean, the biggest thing to me that I was looking for is like, can they really keep this humor going? And I think they elevated it one more level.
Yeah, I agree. The thing I was kind of worried about is I didn't want them to make it too light and too kind of funny or try to overdo it. And I think they hit it perfectly, because in this one, I feel like it had all ranges of emotions. You had, some sadness, you had some, laughter, like it hit everything. And I really liked how you really got to know some of the characters more, especially Drax. I thought Drax was the best part of the movie. He was my favorite character in this one.
Absolutely. He was by far, like they compounded on that like simple humor they gave him right in the first one, where he just had a few lines of playing that character, and then this movie they just let it roll and every line landed.
Yeah, and I just like everything they did. The beginning when they had the little montage and you have Baby Groot dancing as the whole fight's going on. I mean, just little things like that are just so cool, and it really differentiates itself from the other Marvel movies, which I really like. Kurt Russell was awesome. I thought he did a great job. Just every character felt like they had their place. They had a few moments. Gamora and Nebula, they had their little sister rivalry thing. They hit on every little character. They hit on Rocket a little bit. So I was really happy to see that.
I will say that to play devil's advocate on the other side, just talk about things that I thought can prove. I thought, like, if you look at the basis of the story, I kind of like the story from Volume 1 better, just because it tied in more to where the whole Marvel universe is going with, the Infinity War, tying more back into getting to Thanos. But I understand they had to do this. They had to get the, who Star-Lord actually is out of the way. They had to satisfy that Marvel universe where I think there's actually like 3 living planets in the Marvel universe. I think like Ego had a twin brother and a moon that were also alive, and they're like one of them bit the other one or something, like as planets.
Dude, you are going way nerd right now.
It was really, really weird time, and so I know they had to satisfy that to tell who he is, and everything. I just felt like the story was a little bit better leading to everything. But still, like you said, the action was good. The opening scene may have been like the best opening scene we've seen since like Deadpool.
Right. I liked the music better in the first one, just because I think it was more songs that everyone's kind of familiar with.
I agree.
The music in the second one was good, but I think the soundtrack was better in the first one. But overall, like you said, I thought it was great. I went back and forth, kind of, did I like it more in the first one? Did I not like it as much? And I think I like it a little bit more than the first one, just because when I went in to see Guardians, the first one, I didn't have huge expectations. So when it blew me away, I was kind of like, surprised. But then on this one, I had huge expectations, and it, satisfied all of them. So,
and the next part is like nothing to do with Guardians of the Galaxy really, but I was a little disappointed in the cutscenes. Like they put a bunch of them in there.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Like there were a few of them that were kind of funny, like okay, chuckles. But what we're expecting from Marvel is we all want to see what's going to happen at the Avengers, right? Like what's happening with Thanos. What's happening with the stones, where the next movie's going to go. And they really didn't. I mean, they gave very little Easter eggs there, I feel like.
Right. And me and my brother were talking after we saw it, and we agreed that, I felt that they had a perfect opportunity to do something, And my only feeling is they're kind of saving that for Spider-Man and Thor. That's the only thing I can think, you know. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have five, I think they have five different ones. And look, I get the Stan Lee thing, but have him in a little cameo, but don't, you know, that whole cutscene with him or after credit scene, I thought was kind of dumb.
But apparently we did. I missed this that Jeff Goldblum was not in a cutscene, but he was dancing in the sidebar in the credits, and he's supposed to be some Marvel character. I didn't pick up on it. I'm gonna have to go back and watch again. But apparently I missed a Marvel character introduction with Jeff Goldblum dancing on the side with the Guardians.
Yeah, he I forget the name of his character, but he's in he'll be playing a big part in Thor Ragnarok. So, and I'm excited to see that. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, so we both, sounds like we both enjoyed it. Both thought it hit what we were looking for. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some movies that over the years we haven't been so thrilled with. Maybe some movies that, you know, we've all seen that when we left, we were just like, dude, what were they thinking by making that? And I'm only in my list of, this is our list of top 5 worst superhero movies. And in mine, I only put movies I've seen. So I didn't put Catwoman in there because I never saw it. So I only put movies that I've seen. So JJ, what are your worst 5?
I paired Elektra and Daredevil together because they're kind of the same thing. And I unfortunately did watch both. And it's just so terrible, especially now that we get to compare it to the TV show.
Yeah, TV show's so good.
Just gross. Green Lantern, I don't think I made it all the way through, but I'm pretty sure I watched enough of it to call it just terrible. But I'm so glad that we have it now because of Deadpool. Makes it even more awesome. They can make fun of it. I'm going to double up on both Fantastic Four, even though I only saw the first one. Just the trailers enough on the second one were awful enough to let me know, and then once I had a couple friends see it, they just can't get that franchise right at all. And then my bottom of the bottom is every Superman made before Man of Steel, because they are just awful, just terrible, like the worst.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, a lot of people hated on Superman Returns, but I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was, you know, Superman's a hard character, I think, to get right because he is kind of like this choir boy. He's a guy that is the epitome of good. He didn't really have any dark, you know, really a dark side or anything. So I think when Man of Steel came out, it kind of hit on that and people didn't really know how to react. So my worst 5 would be, I got Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, Ghost Rider, Batman and Robin, of course, Daredevil, and then I don't know if this is the worst, but Spider-Man 3 was so bad. I mean, I remember watching it. I remember watching it in theaters and just thinking to myself, dude, this movie has to get better. And then, you know, the Sandman kills like all these people and then tells Peter like, hey, I have a kid at home, and he's like, all right, get out of here. You know, it's just like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so that, you know, and then that whole scene with Goth, Tobey Maguire, I don't think I'll ever get that out of my head. So, you know, overall, just not. And I definitely left some of these off. I mean, I could have.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Added
Catwoman. Yeah, I definitely saw some of that.
Lantern, definitely would have been up there.
Can we talk just about you said Batman and Robin? That could have been made the list solely on costume selection alone.
Yeah, that Batman Forever is the movie before that, and it wasn't good, but it wasn't like terrible. Yeah. And I don't know what they were thinking, but they just went complete off the deep end with Batman and Robin. I mean, so the fact that they were able to reboot that and turn it into one of the greatest franchises ever, if not the greatest. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say the greatest. Yeah. You know, is still just a miracle because they left that for dead.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they could just like you just take all this and you don't have to follow anything. You don't have to follow any path, and you can just turn it around completely. It's what Fantastic Four thought they were going to do, and then they did the exact same thing again.
Right. So a couple other small awards before we get into our top 5. So JJ, what was your biggest surprise superhero movie? So a movie that maybe you went into and you thought that it might be pretty good, but it completely blew you away.
So no surprise, I'm a huge Batman fan. So, and as I said, the Superman movies never really spoke to me. But when I saw Man of Steel first time, I was actually enjoyed every piece of it. Like I was involved in it, drew me in. I thought they actually developed a character instead of just making him kind of this blank Boy Scout. Man of Steel was definitely the most surprise I ever got out of a movie.
I agree. That's not my choice, but I do agree that it was more than I thought it would be, and especially with Zack Snyder, I think he's kind of overrated. I think he's made some good movies. 300 was a pretty good movie, but it's not that it's a great movie. It's just that he has a way of filming it to where it looks like something new, like something you've never seen before. But once you actually watch the movie, you kind of think to yourself, man, that's not really a great movie. It looks cool. It looks awesome. But when you really start digging deep, it's kind of just a plain movie with really gorgeous fight scenes in it. So my biggest surprise was Kick-Ass. I remember when I watched this, it was playing, it was like in limited selection theaters, around the country. And me and my brother went to, I think we had to go to somewhere in Dallas and watch it. And it was just awesome. I mean, up until then, you hadn't really seen a horror movie. Deadpool's, kind of known as the first movie that, was rated R, superhero wise, and did all those things. But Kick-Ass did that years before. And I mean, just everything, just the characters, it had humor, it had awesome fighting scenes in it. So Kick-Ass to me was the biggest surprise from a superhero movie. Let's switch gears a little bit and go to our biggest disappointment. So a movie that maybe we had hyped up in our minds, but when we got in there and after the credits rolled, we decided that, hey, this movie blows. So JJ, what was your biggest disappointment?
Not that I necessarily just say all out blows. I was just severely disappointed in what it could have been and where it goes. I'm gonna go with Suicide Squad. So, I know that everybody's 50-50 on Batman, Superman. That's cool, and I get it. But I was so stoked about Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman. That's like the one thing if I can take out of Batman Superman is I think for the comic book nerds out there, like him portraying Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns-ish character, so an older, kind of haggard Batman. I thought he nailed it. So I was like super excited. We're going to get a little Batman and basically a ton of his villains with a few other DC villains thrown in, right? So we get to a Joker and everything else. So it came in and the trailers were funny and great soundtrack, maybe one of my top 5 favorite soundtracks of all time from a movie, like awesome soundtrack. And then I got in and it was just like, okay, like I hated the villain. I thought Enchantress was dumb. If you've ever talked comic books or superhero movies with me, the one thing that I can't stand is the cliche light beam to the sky / funnel down from the sky. It drives me crazy and it's in like 50% of superhero movies. It was in Batman, Superman, it's in Suicide Squad, it's in a bunch of Thors, it's in an Iron Man, it's in Avengers, like light beam to the sky. I don't know why we have to have that / tunnel coming down, but they did that with Enchantress, and I thought her character completely missed as a good villain where they could have gone so many directions with DC. But yeah, I was disappointed.
Right. Talking a little bit about Suicide Squad, I like the soundtrack, but I also felt it was kind of forced. Like I felt like they were just like, hey, let's just put in as many cool songs as we can. Even if it doesn't really fit what we're doing, let's just throw a cool song in there. Maybe it'll, you know what I'm saying? So to me, it just, some of the music didn't feel like it fit what they were doing.
When I meant favorite soundtrack, I mean like just pop it on. Like especially like working out or have something on there, just listening to it. I was like, oh, this sounds great.
Yeah, no, the music is good. The songs are good, but I'm saying I don't know if it fit the movie at all times, But my biggest disappointment. One more thing before I get off of Suicide Squad.
Margot Robbie was great. Yeah, okay.
She was good, and Will Smith was good.
Yeah,
but Joker was awful. Like
I'm split emotions on it, but it wasn't the best for sure.
It was terrible. And my thing is, they should have held off on him.
Yeah,
like they rushed it, and I hope that they go a different direction in the future with Joker, because I did not enjoy Jared Leto's Joker at all. Like and I know he's supposed to be a crazy lunatic, but he just looked like, I don't know, he just looked like an idiot the whole time, and he was always talking like an idiot. He had a grill for some reason, not sure what that was about. But on to my biggest disappointment, it would be X-Men Apocalypse. And mainly because when I was growing up, the X-Men cartoon was like the hugest thing in the world, or biggest thing in the world. Everybody, all kids my age watched it. It was awesome. Still to this day, I think it's probably one of the best cartoons as far as Saturday morning cartoons ever. And my favorite villain from that was Apocalypse. I just thought he was so cool. I liked his voice. Like, he was super powerful. And the movie comes along, and it's none of those things. They didn't use the voice until the very end, which they should have used the entire time. And another thing that X-Men is doing that I hate is, for some reason, they think that Mystique is like some huge character in the X-Men universe. I'm sorry you decided to put Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, and you think that the only way to get people in the theater is to have her in it. People don't go to watch X-Men movies for Jennifer Lawrence. So stop trying to put Mystique in everything and go a different route. Like, go with the characters that are actually featured in 90% of the X-Men stuff.
I could have used more Phoenix until they decided to kill her off early.
I could have, but I feel like they've already done that, and now they're gonna try.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, like, I feel like they made her like she was a side character, and then she was a main character that turned into this villain, and then she's gone, and then we carry Mystique the entire ride.
Right. And another thing I don't like is, how many times is Magneto going to almost kill everyone on Earth, only for them to like lock him up, or for him to change his mind at the last second and be like, I'll let everyone live. Like, that whole thing is kind of wearing me out too. It's like Magneto comes in, he's angry at everyone, he's about to kill everybody, and then somehow, he thinks less of it and decides not to do it, and everybody's like, "Oh, thank you, Magneto. Yes, go off into the woods and but don't do it again, or there's gonna be trouble."
I mean, X-Men's has been one of those, like, because they got a lot of different universes playing and a lot of different storylines going on, which is, I'm cool with it. Like, it's fun. But it's just so up and down. Like, it'll be a good movie and then just a complete miss, and a good movie. And then I like Days of Future Past. That was fun. And then, but like you said, yeah, when Apocalypse came out, I was super excited about it. I think it's everybody's childhood villain fan to go in there. And I just got a meh feeling. Like, I watch almost every superhero movie, at least twice, right? Like, it comes out, I watch in the theater, then it comes out on DVD and I watch it. I never even thought about watching it. Like, it never crossed my mind, hey, let's watch that movie again. Right.
It's on HBO right now, and I can't even sit through like 10 minutes of it. But so let's get over to the movies that are in our top echelon of superhero movies. So before we get into our top 5, let's just give a couple of honorable mentions real quick. For me, honorable mentions that didn't make the list, I have 3 of them. I have The Dark Knight Rises. I could have easily put it in the top 5, but it just didn't make the cut. X-Men Days of Future Past was up there as well. And Spider-Man 2. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but Spider-Man 2, and I'm talking about the Tobey Maguire one, was just awesome. Like, the villain, Doc Ock, was amazing in that movie. I just like the whole way they did it. The action scenes at that time were way above what everyone else was doing. The scene where they're on the train and he's doing all that stuff, like, nobody else was doing stuff like that during that time. So those are my 3 honorable mentions. JJ, what did you have?
In there, I got Guardians of the Galaxy. We already talked about that. Great movie. I put Civil War in there, the Captain America Civil War, just because it was a comic that, I read the entire series. This is going to get real nerdy. It was like 120 separate ones. I was really excited about it. I thought they did a good job portraying it in there. For me, one of the biggest knocks I always have on Marvel is in the cinematic universe, is that their villains are just terrible. They just have bad villains. And this one, they just took all the villains out of it, right? And they just fight each other. Fun action scenes. And then my last one is Logan. Love that movie. What a great way to send him off. I feel like it's a movie I'm probably going to watch a few more times. And by the time I do, it's going to make it into my top list.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go number 5. Number 5 for me was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I kind of already went over my review of the film, why I enjoyed it, what I thought was awesome about it. The reason it made my top 5 is Guardians Volume 1 would have been up there, but like I said earlier, I think Volume 2 was a little bit better in my mind. So it took the fifth spot. What about you, JJ?
This is where I put Dark Knight Rises. It was a comeback after really, really good movie. Just what a cast, like great cast. For them to be able to come back after, everybody knows the Heath Ledger thing, and come back and hit such a home run with Bane, introduce somewhat of a Catwoman, a little bit of a Robin, and kill it. I thought, really fun movie, good storyline.
All right, what'd you have as your number 4?
Number 4, I go back to the original Avengers movie. And the reason I kind of put it up there is, it was a kind of a fun, free-for-all movie. And maybe not like the best, well-written and all around, but it was that first movie where we actually got all these superheroes together, right? And it was just so exciting. And I remember watching it the first time and just being so excited about all the interactions between these guys, and how much fun it was. And then every time I watch it, I still get that same feeling. So just for pure of like kind of breaking that ground, what they did, I put that in there.
Cool. I got number 4. I got Logan. I saw it the weekend it came out, and it was just amazing. I mean, the Wolverine movies, the first one could have easily been in my worst 5. The first Wolverine movie was awful, but I feel like the Wolverine, the one where he goes to Japan, was actually pretty good. And when they decided to do this with an older Logan, from the trailers, you could tell it was going to be awesome. And everything that they promised in the trailers, it delivered and more. Like, I felt a lot of times with superhero movies, they show too much in the trailers, and you get to the movie and you're like, man, I've already seen all the cool stuff. Well, in Logan, I felt kind of the opposite. Like, you didn't see the really cool stuff in the trailers. You saw the really cool stuff at the movies, which is how it's supposed to be. So to me, Logan was, like you said earlier, it was a great way to send him off. I loved the little girl that was, in the movie too. I think she did an awesome job. And I just love the whole dynamic between him and Xavier. Xavier, he's kind of taking care of Xavier the way Xavier took care of him when he was struggling. So that's my number 4.
Yeah, and I think what they did the best is like I talked about earlier, how X-Men has kind of written their own rules to where they could jump around storylines. Is that this one jumped to a completely different storyline? Like, unless you're a super comic book nerd, you probably don't know of like how they got there and about who killed the rest of the X-Men and blah blah blah. But it didn't really matter. Like, they could write their own script and send him out how they wanted. And I thought it was great.
Number 3 for me, I have Civil War. Civil War to me is kind of what Batman versus Superman should have been. And the reason that it is because they took their time. If they would have just thrown Iron Man and Captain America out there after one movie of Iron Man, it would have had the same results as Batman versus Superman. Mm-hmm. But they took their time. They built that relationship. Even in the first Avengers, you could tell that they were kind of clashing a little bit. And then it advanced in Age of Ultron. And then you get to Civil War, and it's a war between these two. And it's one of those things where they're both good guys, and you kind of in your mind you kind of have it picked as to who you want to win, but you don't want the other one to lose. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was just a great way to have these two characters share the screen. They duked it out. My only complaint is I wish they would have left it to where they were still kind of enemies. Like, I didn't like how Captain America wrote that letter to kind of, call a truce on the whole thing. I think they should have left it to where they're at odds.
Yeah, I think, again, like I had that one in honorable mention, great. And I mentioned the comic book part of it earlier. I think this is the best series that Marvel I've ever read put out in comic book. And I read the entire thing, and it was just so great. And they can't fit all of that into the movie.
No.
But they did a great job of like you said, the characters were already developed, and we really got to see like that political dynamic. And I think movies like that, and I think you can look at Batman, Superman the same way, even though if everything else was rushed, these movies are bringing in a political stance that we've never seen before, right? We see bad guy, good guy, fight all this, but they're really sending messages about deeper down in. And Civil War did the exact same thing. We're talking about government, we're talking about regulation and all this stuff. And so definitely like how they dove into that just like they did in the comics. Right.
We'll kind of get into that because I kind of want to hit on that part of it in a movie that's, I think, a little bit higher up on both of our lists when we get there. So what did you have at number 2?
No, it's my number 3, and I had Winter Soldier.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I loved this movie. It's one of my favorite just go-to all-out action movies. Winter Soldier is easily one of my favorite characters in Marvel, especially in the cinematic universe now. So cool. Marvel didn't have some crazy alien or some being or some supernatural anything. You had two soldiers, similar fighting styles, similar everything, is kind of go head to head, right? And you had, somewhat of Shield with Captain America, going up against, a guy, who's been turned bad, but you have the good storyline with him being Bucky back and forth. But just the fight scenes, like you're watching the Black Widow and those guys, and then especially with Captain America fighting Winter Soldier, the hand-to-hand straight-up combat without a bunch of big superpowers and big explosions and everything, just pure hand-to-hand was just so much fun to watch. I mean, even with GSP fighting on the boat, like it was just exciting to watch, just pure enjoyable movie. If I could say like there's a standard superhero movie like how-to, I think it should be written like Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier was great, and if we were making a top 10, it would have definitely been in my top 10. I think my favorite Marvel franchise is Captain America. I think all three of those movies have been excellent, and they've only gotten better in my eyes. Mm-hmm. Iron Man, I think it's kind of been the other way around. Like the first one was really good. Yep. The second one was pretty good. And then the third one, I have some mixed feelings about the third one. But I mean, like you said, and again, it goes to that conflict. Like if you didn't watch the first Captain America, then you don't get the conflict. But since you have the first one, then you're like, oh man, these guys used to be best friends. I used to see them do this and this. And these things take time. You can't just throw these things together. And I think that's what DC's starting to learn is like these things take time. You can't just throw a bunch of people into a room and everybody's going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to see these guys fight. No, let's set up why they're fighting, why this is going down. And Marvel has been they've been way better at doing that so far than DC has. So that was your number 3, you said? Mm-hmm. Who do you have for number 2?
Deadpool, the greatest anti-hero of all time. This movie is super cool. I remember watching that fan-made trailer 5 years before it came out, it felt like, right? Like we all got it and we're like, oh, that's really funny. Like, this fan made this CGI trailer and it was really funny. And then it got so much wave that they made this movie and the hype was there. We all knew what to expect from the character and it delivered double-fold. I mean, funny and everything, but I think what really makes it all the way to number 2 is groundbreaking. I don't think we have Logan without Deadpool, right? Because we get that rated R, we get that push into, okay, we can make these adult movies. It's not it doesn't necessarily have to be a kid's superhero world anymore. We get these rated R, very violent, it can be funny, adult jokes movie in there, and it just hit on every single level. There wasn't a joke that didn't land. I'm pretty sure every time I watch it, I probably get a new funny something out of it. I thought it was just great.
Yeah, Deadpool, it didn't make my top 5, but it was very close. And kind of everything you said, we still would have got a Logan, but it wouldn't have been the Logan that we saw. It would have been a much tamer version of Logan, which wouldn't have done it service. Deadpool, it kind of broke all those... and he even kind of jokes about it throughout the movie that it's kind of breaking all of these superhero, rules and all these superhero things. And I think it's going to open up the door to some other franchises kind of doing some things or maybe some other franchises being used. But I just hope they don't overdo it. I hope that they don't say, oh, we can make everything rated R now. We can do all this and this. Like it's not going to – Captain America should never have a rated R movie. Right. Superman should never have a rated R movie. Maybe Batman, just because I feel like his villains are kind of like that. And if you really think about Batman and, if you've read some of the comics.
If they didn't do that, if they didn't have to do that to get, how, a Heath Ledger Joker,
right.
or a Bane following that, then I don't think they have to do it.
No, but I'm saying if they wanted to go a route of, kind of make it
really dark, sure.
Right. I'm trying to think of the guy. What's the guy that does every time he kills someone, he makes a mark on his body? Batman. Who is that? Oh, man. It's really going to upset me that I can't think of that. But, if they wanted to go that route and have him as like a side villain in a movie and make it really dark, then they could do that. But, with Deadpool, I didn't feel like, and I really like the villain in Deadpool. I'm with you on most of Marvel movies. The villains sometimes don't measure up to what I think they should be.
Victor Zsasz is who you're talking about.
Victor Zsasz, yeah. So to me, the villain was really good. You know, they had these really good moments, these really good little montages that they had. The interaction between him and, you know, his friend and him and his roommate were just awesome.
Oh, and the X-Men cameo was perfect. I mean, too. I mean,
yeah,
we did get 2 other X-Men, like spare X-Men, and then we made fun of how spare they were. It was great.
Right. My number 2 is Avengers. When I went and saw this in the theater, it actually came out the weekend of my birthday when it came out. And this movie was just, it had all the hype that you could possibly imagine surrounding a superhero movie. They had built this thing from the ground up. All these people had their own, you know, solo movies at some point, except for Hawkeye and Black Widow. And you didn't really know how it was going to work, but you had super high expectations, and it hit all of them. I mean, everything you wanted in a movie, it did that. The conflict that you have between all these people, you know, that's why I liked Loki as the villain in that one, because all he does is he just kind of lets them go at each other. You know, he's smart enough to know, like, hey, these people, if I let them in the room long enough, they're going to go after each other instead of going after me.
He's definitely one of the villains that the Marvel Universe has gotten right, and you can tell because they've used him like 100 times.
They use him all the time, yeah. So, to me, Avengers, JJ hit on it some earlier, so I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about it, but the fact that they were able to get all those characters, and each character had their own, like, great moment. When Thor's sitting there talking to his brother, you know, the Hulk, when he finally turns into the Hulk at the end and just starts, you know, smashing everything. Every character had their moment to shine in that movie, and it paced perfectly. There was no dead or dull spots, so it did a perfect job on that. So I think number 1, I think both of us have the same number 1,
I think so.
And that's The Dark Knight. I don't think most people, I think, would agree that there hasn't been a movie yet that has kind of captured what that movie was able to do. I'll just hit quickly on what I liked about it. So you talked earlier about political aspect of movies now, and it kind of hits on that too. You know, how far are you willing to go to save people? How far are you willing to go to, you know, restore order? Are you willing to go almost to the criminal side to make sure that people are saved? And what does that mean about you? Or what does that say about you in the long run? The Dark Knight also had the greatest villain. Not only, most people say in comic books he's the greatest movie, but in the movie he even expanded on that. And any expectations you had of Heath Ledger going in, they had to be blown away by the time you left the theater. I mean, I remember when they first said that he was going to do it, and I was like, Heath Ledger. But I trusted Christopher Nolan because I've seen his movies up until that point. So I said, he must know something, because he's really good at this. He knows what he's doing. He's not going to throw someone in there to this kind of role that's not ready for it or doesn't know what they're doing. And just everything about it. That was the first time that a damsel in distress died, you know, that I can think of. And that was just kind of shocking. I mean, I remember when it happened, I was shocked because you had never seen that. You'd always seen the hero come in and kind of save them. And it wasn't that movie. Like, you felt, even though Batman and in the end was victorious, you still felt that he lost because all this other stuff happened to him. He kind of lost a part of himself. His friends people that had helped him had kind of looked at him differently because of things he was having to do. So it was just, I mean, I could go on for hours about how fantastic the movie was. The soundtrack by Hans Zimmer in that movie, to me, is the best score ever. So I mean, you want to talk about raising, you know, suspense at certain points. I mean, it just played perfectly to the tone of the movie at all points and aspects of that movie. His music is prevalent throughout the whole thing. So to me, Dark Knight, hands down, my favorite superhero movie.
Yeah, this isn't close. This is something, it doesn't matter. I could watch this movie on loop for days and just absolutely enthrall into it. As a huge Batman fan, you know, this hits exactly what Batman is supposed to be. He's supposed to be conflicted. He's not supposed to make the right decisions all the time. He is human, right? He doesn't have any superpowers. And what that creates is then we get to ask more questions instead of like, oh, you know, how is this crazy powerful superhero going to beat this other crazy powerful thing? No, it's mind games. It's psychological, right? I mean, Batman's supposed to be, he's a detective, you know, when he first came out, right? He's a Detective Comics, DC. He's the world's greatest detective. It's a mind game, and who better to do that than with Joker, right? So my opinion, just comics, is Joker's always been the world's greatest villain, and then Heath Ledger comes in with his own style and just blows it away. Like you said, transcending roles. I mean, this is maybe one of the best acting jobs I've seen, period. There's no need to put a superhero tag on it. Like, what he transformed into to make that is just incredible.
And I think that kind of what you hit on is the reason it's number one is because it changed people's thought process of what a superhero movie could be.
Right.
Beforehand it was like, oh, it's this thing where kids go to, and it's at the end the hero wins and everybody's happy. And this kind of go ahead.
Like you said earlier, I think we got a setup too, right? Like, so Batman Begins was a good movie. We didn't make it into our top fives or anything, but it was a good movie. We got introduced to his character, so we didn't have to waste any time on that. We got the very first scene, boom, we get Joker and doing exactly what Joker does, right? He doesn't, bad guys, good guys, doesn't matter. He's doing it for him. And it's like you said, that's so perfect because we didn't have to get introduced to Batman at all. We already had.
Well, and the thing I like about Joker too in Dark Knight is it felt every time he entered the movie, it just seemed like chaos. Like it didn't seem, and that was what was so great about it is, he would just pop up into these scenes and it would instantly change the scene. Like these people are having a party and then boom, Joker's there and everything changes. He goes to the bank and I remember when that first 5 minutes came out, they actually released that before the movie came out. They released that in certain IMAX theaters. And I think it was before like Mission Impossible 3 or something like that. Anyways, and you could only see it at these IMAX theater. And I remember looking for and I finally, you could find it online if you looked hard enough, but it was just so cool. And he just changed the way that everybody's starting to go to these IMAX cameras now. I think Infinity, his new movie Dunkirk, I don't know if the whole thing's shot in IMAX, but I know a large portion of it is. And I think the new Avengers or the Infinity Wars is going to be shot in all IMAX, I think. So he's completely changed that. He wasn't the one that, went along with that 3D train. Everybody else and their mom was doing the 3D thing. And he was like, no, I don't care for it. I don't think it's good for film. And he stuck to it. And the thing I respect most about Christopher Nolan is he could have asked for his price. He had pretty much a blank check to do whatever he wanted to do. He could have kept doing Batman movies forever. And he was like, no, I want to do these other things that I'm really passionate about. I mean, I wish he would have stayed, but you can't fault the guy for doing what he wants to do and create the vision that he wants to create. But Dark Knight is just everything about it, the music, the characters.
No, you wouldn't even talk about any supporting cast, like from, a Morgan Freeman, of how great everybody did in that movie, right? And like I mentioned it a little bit when Dark Knight Rises, because they did a great job again, Tom Hardy and going through that. But like, everything around it was good. The effects were just enough. We got the badass Bat Cycle for the Batmobile, and just the whole thing is just such a complete movie. And really, we know that Leto steals it and takes it over the top, and that's what gets it number one. But it's just a great
not
movie
Leto,
around.
not Leto,
not Leto. I'm sorry, Ledger.
But yeah, and you said something about the effects. The thing I really enjoyed about the effects actually was that there was very little CGI used. I mean, there was some scenes where they used it, but it wasn't like the entire movie was shot behind or in front of a green screen.
Right.
And Christopher Nolan, his Batman movies, the fighting scenes aren't that great. Like I thought the Batman, the small fighting scene that he had in Batman vs Superman was better than any of the fighting scenes hand to hand that they had in the Nolan's trilogy.
That was amazing.
Yeah, but the action scenes were so good. I mean, the one where he goes into the bank, and then when Batman goes to Tokyo or China or Hong Kong, and does that whole thing, and then when they're out in the streets and the 18-wheeler flips and all that. I mean, just every scene in that movie just builds to this ultimate climax, and it's just a perfect film. And they changed the rules for the Academy Awards to fit more movies. They were supposed to do it for movies like this, so it made space for them. It'll never get the respect it's supposed to. Hopefully Logan kind of breaks through and gets some nominations because it deserves it. But Dark Knight is the only reason why any of these movies are considered actual art now. So, but guys, that's our rundown of top superhero movies. Let us know what you feel about our list. If there's any changes or anything. We are on Twitter. You can follow us at Bored Sports, BORED Sports. We are on Libsyn. We're also on Spreaker, so find us on there. And let us know what you think about the show. We're still getting rolling, still doing, still pretty early in this thing, but anything you can let us know to improve, we'd appreciate it. JJ, you got anything else?
No, man. Excited to see you got a bunch of good movies coming up this year. We are just like getting rolling, and we hit it off with a bang. I feel like so far. With, Logan and Guardians of the Galaxy. So Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Justice League, and of course, the finale of every year now is a Star Wars movie. So excited to see everything roll out. Definitely.
So guys, appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.